Well, joining us from Washington, D.C. is Harry Broadman. He's a former chief of staff in the President's Council of Economic Advisers. Harry, glad to have you with us. Now, you were a chief White House economist, so you've been in there in the White House advising the president on different president, but, on economic strategy. What would you have been saying to Donald Trump when he announced the tariffs and then today?
First of all, I'm not sure what anyone says to Donald Trump matters other than what Donald Trump thinks, but let's just put that aside. I think his biggest problem is he's facing and creating a double whammy. The substance of his policy is bankrupt. He's barking up the wrong tree. And number two, the way he's implementing the policy by putting something on the table, taking it off the table, changing it here, changing it there. As an economic policy matter and the President of the United States, you could not think of a worse combination of ways of handling economic opportunities and risks for the largest economy in the world.
Yeah, I've heard it said that you can't run a country like a business. Is that a phrase that you would stand by?
Well, I mean, obviously, certain parts of a government procedures, you obviously do have to worry about things like a business. But I think more of the point is he's a deal maker, and that shows through and through. I grew up in New York, where he grew up, and his forte is in the real estate market, which is very different. It's not international what he does. Now he's in the international market. Two, we're talking about cross-border trades, not real estate deals within a particular city or in a particular country. And thirdly, he's dealing with people who he doesn't even have a rapport with and gets into a substantive conversation about what Mr. Trump's perceptions of the problems are. He does not have a blueprint. He's not articulated either to the American people or to his foes overseas. I'm doing this for the following reasons. And when he then dwells on deficits as the order of the day, deficits are not economically meaningful. It's not as if a deficit between two countries is the same as a deficit between other countries. And more to the point, a deficit does not necessarily mean a negative balance sheet. It means that you bought something from somebody. They may well buy something from you, but it's a natural everyday occurrence. You buy a cup of coffee from a person selling you coffee and you pay that person, you're now in deficit to that coffee provider. So it's unbelievable. And frankly, it's hard to believe that he went to Wharton at the University of Pennsylvania, I have to say.
Yeah. If I could just pick you up on the points there. I mean, what kind of pressure, bearing all of that in mind, would Trump have been under the last few days?
Oh, I'm sure he's under a lot of pressure from business people. I think also to some extent from world leaders. I think his real audience is the business community. And I think secondly, what he's paying attention to are markets. And I think looking at markets is really not the right signal to be looking at. It's how is the economy growing? Who's purchasing what? Who's selling what? How are workers doing? How are consumers doing? What markets do? Markets are notoriously volatile generally, right? Because they're based upon expectations of future sales and purchases. So the fact that he's focused and his colleagues are focused on what the market reaction is, which we heard at the top of the hour, and it's all over the news, I'm not sure he's focusing on the right performance indicator because he hasn't articulated what his performance indicator is, and it certainly is not financial markets by themselves.
Okay, and let's have a look at China then. In terms of slapping this 125% tariff on China, the two of the world's biggest economies then head to head now. Where's this going to go?
Well, it's not going to turn out well, I believe, certainly in the short to medium run. As a former trade negotiator, beyond the fact that I was in the Council of Economic Advisors, the chief of staff there, as a trade negotiator, you have to, have a discussion with the folks on the other side of the table about what you want from them and what they want from you. That's not been taking place. It did take place a little bit during Mr. Trump's first term, but I think he got the policy there wrong as well. But trading barbs across the Pacific Ocean with China, has the largest population on Earth. They're pretty clever, right? I do think that they know what makes Mr. Trump tick. And that's why they built up this ammunition, as it were, about retaliation. And he stepped right into it, I think.
I mean, Trump has spoken about making America great again. That's at the heart of it, and pumping business internally into the US. But in terms of going forward, really, is this sort of thing, tariffs, is it bad for the whole world?
It's I think the uncertainty and the instrument, both the tools that he's using, tariffs, and his flip-flopping and his lack of articulation of what his strategy is and what his goals are. What is he looking for? The only thing that is enunciated by him and his team are deficits, trade deficits, and merchandise deficits. The fastest growing part of world trade is in the services sector, not in the merchandise sector. But the fact that he's looking at tariffs as the instrument to try to get the world economy and the U.S. economy and presumably our trading partners growing is not the right instrument. What you want to do is collectively sit down and say, listen, we've got challenges, you've got challenges. What are the opportunities? What can we do together where alleviate some of your pain and alleviate some of our pain, but that we grow together? That discussion is completely missing.
Harry Broadman, you've had such first-hand experience of this, so we really appreciate your expertise and you joining us this evening. Thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure.